Brodes Media.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. Today, I want to assess Vic Fangio's press conference and the OTAs that went down on Tuesday afternoon, some field stuff as well, because it's about time we check in on the defending Super Bowl champions. And I love listening to Vic Fangio because he's a no-nonsense type of dude. He's no bullshit. He's not just going to give you what you want to hear. He's going to be honest. His assessment is going to be authentic, and he's going to keep it 100. If you are not living up to the standard, you will most likely hear something that you don't like coming from his mouth and straight to the reporters' phones when they're recording him. And then you got to live with the consequences until you prove your greatness. Until you show up to camp and you dominate and play the way that you're supposed to play. So when he speaks, I listen. Because it's not coach speak. There's realness in his answers, and it's telling on where certain guys fall in the depth chart currently, with a lot of time for that to change. It's the early stage here. But the early stage matters. When you are a team that needs to attack with the right mindset following a Super Bowl, knowing it is rare and hard to keep up that pace. It starts now. It doesn't start 3 weeks from now. Hell, it started back at the draft. And I loved what they did with Jihad Campbell and Makuba, so I checked those boxes. But I'm keeping my eyes on exactly the way they move from top to bottom. I'm already in love with what I'm hearing about the way Jaylen Hurts is throwing the football. See, what I love about Jaylen, and I wasn't going to start here, but here we go. He hears it all. He can't throw. He's not a good passer. He's not this. He's not that. Yet this man is throwing dimes like it's the Super Bowl to Dallas Goedert in camp, dropping a dime, dropping the ball right in the bucket. Boom! Explosive play! To the point where everybody who was covering the practice said, yeah, I'll tell you what the biggest takeaway was. My God. Is Jaylen throwing daggers? That's where his mentality is. To prove everybody wrong. He still has that aggravation that sits in his bone marrow. Because even after winning a Super Bowl MVP by airing out the ball, by putting up 50 plus on the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship game, there's still a lot of noise about what he can't do. And that's a man on a mission. And he sets the tone, and everybody follows, which is amazing. But what I really wanted to begin with was Jordan Davis, because I have been, over the last 2 weeks, very critical on what they project him to be. And I just don't know if it's in his skill set to be a pass rusher, but they are looking at it differently. And I hope to God I'm wrong. I want him to be a 3-down type of guy. But remember, what was the knock coming out of Georgia? There's so much talent. It wasn't the knock. It was sort of the excuse that we built on why he wasn't playing as many snaps as we would like him to coming out of college, getting drafted high in the first round. There's so many 5-star recruits. They need to mix in all of this phenomenal talent. So, of course, someone's going to have to pay the price because of their fantastic rotation. Where the truth was, he just wasn't physically in the right space and mentally in the right space. And it has taken him a couple of years to kind of get to where he needs to be. But listening to Vic, who will not just praise him to praise him, who will only keep it 100 and tell you exactly the real truth on where these current guys stand. He's like, yeah, now this guy is in the best shape he's ever been in as an Eagle. This guy is putting in the work. Jordan Davis, let's go. And I'm almost wondering now, do I need to recalibrate? Do I need to reset? Do I need to go into this going hype on the potential Jordan Davis breakout year and be a more of an accomplished dog? And I'm thinking maybe. I mean, that's how much value I put into Vic Fangio's assessment on these guys. And then also hearing Jordan Davis go into detail about how he has a word this season to define his attitude, and it's discipline. Now, everybody has their own story. Everybody has sort of their own path, and not everybody takes steps properly. And, you talk about maybe staying in shape and keeping his body where it needs to be to perform at a high level. And maybe there were bumps and bruises along the way from Jordan Davis. But what I do hear now is this guy has a word to define the way that he's going about his business, and it just seems like he's mentally locked in differently. And then physically, you see some of these video clips of what he's doing on the field. It looks like a different dude. It looks like a different guy. Maybe there's truth to it. And I'm starting to wonder, too, you win a Super Bowl. And you're around the Eagles organization for a long time. And I'm putting myself in the shoes of Jordan Davis here. You see all these other guys get drafted to bumhole organizations like Jacksonville, like Cleveland. You are set up to fail nonstop. But then you get to experience the last few years of Brandon Graham and then how this fan base reacts on his way out. You get to live in an era where Lane Johnson is the best right tackle in football, and you're in the same building and in the same locker room as him for years and years and years. Fletcher Cox, you know what he means to this organization as a defensive tackle. The list goes on and on and on. You just watched Jason Kelce and the reception that he earned. You just won a Super Bowl. It's right there in front of you. You can be a staple to the Philadelphia Eagles if you just lock in differently. If you just attack a little bit more on the physical side, and then that'll naturally and organically, I think, sort of put you in a different headspace and confidence and the right amount of arrogance and cockiness to go dominate. You'll feel good about your game. I think we're in a really good spot with Jordan Davis. We're believing and buying into what they're selling. It's funny, Howie would talk about it, Sirianni would talk about it, but for the most part, I assumed it was just a bunch of coach speak, GM speak. Of course, they're going to hype up their guys. That was a draft pick by Howie. That's one of Nick Sirianni's players that he loves and he believes in, and he wants this to happen, so he's willing it into existence. Then I hear from Vic. No beating around the bush. Dude. And you know what else you got to praise here? If this happens the way I expect it to, and then you think of Quinyon Mitchell coming into his first year, Cooper DeJean coming into his first year, Jaylen Carter knowing that he hit a wall his first year. His rookie year, he wasn't able to make it throughout the backstretch because you have to learn what it's like to play in this league against grown men, snap after snap after snap. And that's another thing for Jordan Davis real quick that he kind of compiled over the years is what it takes. See, sometimes you don't know. You don't know. You're naive. I played at Georgia, this and that. Not saying he's a bad kid or whatever, but I'm just saying you don't know. But after a few years of experience going the distance, seeing what it takes to play in February, there's just more knowledge to soak in. And then when you go to your offseason regimen and all, it's okay. I now understand exactly where I need to get to. You don't know where you need to get to until you actually get there and see it and feel it. But anyway, Jaylen Carter, seeing where his conditioning level was after year one, knowing what it needed to be for year two. Oh, by the way, playing 1 billion snaps, he executes. My point is this. This coaching staff, development-wise, Howie can select the talent. But it goes deeper than just getting great players. You have to know what to do with said great players. You got to know what to do once they kind of set their base, set their foundation. Okay, we know this is his floor. We know this is his ceiling. How do we get him from the floor to the ceiling? Not everybody, again, has the same exact path. You have guys that go down through lows, injuries, returning from injuries, rehab, this, that. Maybe someone just doesn't get it until they get hit with reality. Then they get it. You know what I mean? Like Jordan Davis, for example, there was a debate, and it seemed like we knew which way it was leaning anyway. They were most likely going to pick up that fifth-year option, but there was a debate on if they were going to pick up that fifth-year option. How much of that plays into his attack of wanting to make sure he accomplishes his goal here and being a premier Philadelphia Eagle? Of like, yo, they were questioning me. Now, behind the scenes, I don't know if they were, but you know that most times a fifth-year option comes around for some of your top guns, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. This wasn't a no-brainer. It was a 75er, 80%er, 85%er, maybe even a 90%er. But it wasn't a no-brainer. How much of that fuels him? And if that's what he responds to, and this could go back to Jaylen. Jaylen walking to the Super Bowl, looking up at the TV screen and seeing what? A graphic between him and Pat Mahomes and the whole panel siding with Kansas City. Okay. God. You don't think these guys look at him and wonder how, why, what? He's interesting, but it's motivating. It's something that really does captivate you. Maybe we got some of that from Jordan Davis. My fifth-year option? Okay. I'll show you what I'm going to do with this fifth-year option. You know what I'm saying? I love it. I really do. I love it. I love the optimism that I now have for Jordan Davis. Just hearing the word of the offseason, the word of the season being disciplined, and Vic Fangio putting a lot of praise in his direction. That means a lot to me. Now, there are some other comments that Vic Fangio made, and I actually have some audio for you, a couple things made about Jihad Campbell. He talked about the trade of CJGJ and some other things. So we'll get into all that. But first, let me tell you about my lawn. Now, yesterday I posted a video of an update on where my lawn is after Green Lawn Fertilizing came for another wave of treatments. And there are some brown spots. And I'm going, well, why are there brown spots? This is the beauty of Green Lawn Fertilizing. They sit down, they educate you, and they teach you exactly what they're doing, why they're doing it, how it works. And they said, Brodes, it's simple. That's where there were a lot of weeds. We killed the weeds, and now it's time to focus on getting new grass in there so it can be as luscious as the other parts of your lawn. And I said, well, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much. But that's why I go to the experts. You don't want to do it yourself and try and go to Lowe's, Home Depot, mess around with stuff, and then you're screwing up your lawn. They really do know what they're doing. They are fantastic. It really is a family. When you get started with them, it's like one. You can reach out at any time. They're always willing to give you some more information, to talk with you. They're just so great. I can't even explain it enough, And right now is a great time for you to get started. So this is what you have to do, as they are experts in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. You need to go down below in the description and check out the link, which will send you to their website through my link. It'll say, hey, Brodes sent me. And you will get 50% off your first two treatments. 50% off your first two treatments. And if you do want to check out the video that I'm telling you about, you can go to my Twitter, Instagram, Brodes Media, Brodes81, a little combination there for Instagram and TikTok as well. But yeah, it's really cool to see the transformation of where we were when we started, where we are now after a handful of treatments, with still some more treatments to go. But lawn care is no joke, and it changes the big-time beauty of your home. All right, so now let's listen to some audio from Vic Fangio. He was discussing Jihad Campbell, where he's going to start learning, what position, because there's obviously a lot of talk about his versatility, what they're going to do with him early on here, and just the current status based off of some of the injury stuff at the time of the draft.
And specifically as a pass rusher, how did you evaluate him?
Well, right now he's working at ILB because there's a lot more to learn there. So that's where we're starting. he won't hit the practice field until, sometime in August. So we're doing all we can. He's doing all he can in meetings. We're doing all we can with him on the field. I take him to the side and do an individual drill with him that's suited to what he can do right now. So he's working good and trying to pick it up.
I love it. I love it. So I love the fact that he's sitting there with Vic Fangio. They're going off to the side. They're working on some details that they need to consistently work on for a young player. And the sometime in August thing is a timeline. And he also expanded a bit on where Nakobe Dean is and said it's going to be quite some time. So we'll have to really analyze exactly what they do with that linebacker position. But look, I'm going to trust their ability to really have a lot of knowledge on how to start these young players off. If they feel that inside linebacker is the way to kind of go about this and they want to have him working on linebacker stuff because maybe there's a lot more details, it's a lot tougher to than, hey, go pass rush, hey, go after the quarterback, hey, just go get after it. There's things that you got to worry about over the field. There's things you got to worry about in the middle. There's communication with the rest of your team differently. So there's just so much stuff to anchor down that we're going to get after that first. And I trust them. I already went on a couple-minute discussion about how I really believe in what is underneath of Nick Sirianni. And we always talk about the CEO, Nick, and how he's able to sort of look overhead and make sure everything is falling into place. And yes, that's the praise that a head coach, a CEO head coach is going to get. But there's so many layers to a staff when you're that successful. If he's looking over and he likes what he sees, that means then Clint, who helps out with the defensive line, he's doing his job. All these areas, Christian Parker, and the list goes on with all of these position coaches, that they're clearly excelling as well. And if Vic Fangio and anybody else on this staff underneath Vic on the defensive side thinks we should really focus on his mental work with linebacker, film study, do this, do that, we can work on the pass rush. We see his skill set. We see what he's capable of doing as an athlete, and we will absolutely hone in on that. And he can take off, but let's get a base down first. Let's get a foundation down first. See what we can work with here, and then we'll add the pass rush ability. Because in theory, and again, maybe I'm stupid, but in theory, if you have the ability to get to the quarterback, that seems like an add-on. In a way, when you're talking about a player like this, let's figure out the linebacker portion, and we always have that add-on to then key in on where we need to excel there. It's going to be a huge part of his story for sure. I don't want to act like the add-on is not important. It's very important. But just from a very early state here, battling through injuries, trying to get on the field, won't until maybe sometime in August. So it's early June. How do we maximize him based off of our current spot that we are in with him? It's hard for me not to buy into this being a very sharp idea, for sure. But, man, I'll tell you what, I'm very excited for what he can be. I mean, I'm very, very excited about what he can be. So I mentioned about Jaylen Carter, right? And I said how jokingly he doesn't even know the position. Did I say that? I don't know if I said that or not. Did I even say that? Or did I jump right into Jaylen Hurts' throw at camp and then into Jordan Davis? I don't know. Anyway, Jaylen Carter. Listen to this. This is amazing.
I agree with the point he's trying to make. I do think Jaylen, the good news about Jaylen is twofold. One, he played very well for us last year, and two, he can still improve a lot.
So the comment was, horrible job by me, by the way, to try and set up that audio because I thought it actually had the main point in there. But there was a time where Jeremiah Trotter said, hey, Jaylen Carter, in a very complimentary way, he doesn't even truly understand defensive tackle yet. So to say someone who is that much of a monster, that much of a dog, that much of a workhorse, that much of a great, unbelievable, holy hell, he's going to break the game wide open type of guy, doesn't even know who he is as a DT yet, what the position is yet, how to really play it, man, what does that mean for the ceiling of Jaylen Carter? You're going to be talking about him as if it's Aaron Donald. He is going to be the most explosive, athletic, dominant defensive tackle there is in football. So now that you know that that's sort of the premise here, I'll play this 15 seconds again so it makes more sense. I suck at this.
I agree with with the point he's trying to make. I do think Jaylen, the good news about Jaylen is twofold. One, he played very well for us last year, and two, he can still improve a lot.
Still improve a lot. It's the truth, though, man. It's the truth. What if we're watching right now a 75% version of Jaylen Carter? That means you can add 25% more elite to that skill set, to that frame, to that body. Holy hell. And then what does that mean for the Nolan Smiths of the world, the Jalix Hunts of the world? You know what I mean? It just opens up everything even more. It's already going to probably be so many wide open seas for Nolan Smith to have some phenomenal, matchups and all across the board when you got Jaylen Carter's presence just eating up so much space and the fear that he puts in the eyes of every offensive lineman and every offensive coordinator. This is going to be amazing if he does reach that full potential, and there's no reason for me to believe he won't based off of the jump I watched him make from year 1 to year 2, just from the physical state. I mean, that's no joke, the type of work that he put in to make sure he doesn't hit a wall late. And not only is it about not hitting a wall late, but it's what do you do when you do manage to be in a good position. Like, okay, hey, I'm not falling apart. Well, the job's not to not fall apart. It's every snap kick ass. It's every snap beat up anybody who is facing you. You know what I mean? It's not just being there. Being there isn't good enough. Holding your own isn't good enough. It's you got to be in the fourth quarter the best conditioned athlete in the line. And maybe not, or on the line, but maybe not even on the line. Anybody, even compared to your secondary, compared to anybody, your linebackers, anybody, you got to be in the best condition. And Jaylen was able to do that in the snap of his fingers. Now, let's see where we could go when you could just have those fine details all ironed out, how much more that makes you tougher to go up against. I remember listening to, might have been Dave Zangaro and Ruben Frank when A.J. Brown first got here. And they were in awe thinking about the practices that they've seen with him here. And they were saying, it's not so much the catches. We know he can make those catches. It's not so much his frame. We know about his body size, his weight, his ability to go up and get the football. We all know that stuff. But it's what he does during practice that separates him from everybody else. Because, footwork and a half a second throughout a route is the difference in breaking the coverage and getting open enough for the quarterback to throw it your way. And like all these tiny, tiny, tiny details that you add up together is what separates you. And of course, he's got speed. Of course, he has size. Of course, he has hands. Of course, he has all that. But they were in awe of studying that part of his game, the fine, fine details. And when you have the skill set that A.J. Brown has, and then you add on what I'm talking about here, think about tacking that on with Jaylen. And that's essentially what we're talking about here. It's amazing. So, all right, he also discussed liking to keep Cooper DeJean at nickel, but in base, safety, and corner. So just essentially getting one of your best talented young players on the field as much as humanly possible. But I think you're going to watch that role expand. Almost, I'm talking about Jihad Campbell, linebacker, then your added bonus. It's almost okay, hey, we know that we got Cooper DeJean in that nickel. And we saw what he was capable of doing, playing with toughness, playing with just this this insane level of arrogance, this beautiful style of hard-nosed football. But now we can start to really look into how we can expand his greatness. Now we can talk about that sweetener. Now we can talk about the cherry on top, and we can look at safety. We can look at corner, and maybe that's just because of the nature of where you stand. Both of those positions, you trade CJGJ, and you didn't really replace him unless you think Andrew Makuba is significantly better than the idea of Cooper DeJean at times. And maybe he is when he's playing nickel. I mean, there's other ways for this to work where, you are talking about Andrew Makuba, but, I'm just saying in general, you lose Darius Slay, and you're talking about Ringo or Jackson, and you lose CJGJ, and you're talking about Sidney Brown and Makuba. These are no for sure 1,000% options here. So maybe it's just the idea of that. And now because there are, quote, holes that you have to fill, that Cooper DeJean enters the chat and enters the conversation. Or it's just, hey, we were always blessed to know he is capable of doing more things than just play nickel. He's too good to only have him play nickel. So we are going to maximize that. We found a strong base. Now let's key in on how we can make him even better. And this is sort of a view down the road of what they do with Jihad Campbell once they get him where they want to get him comfortable. And they're doing this with Cooper DeJean. But it's interesting to think about him playing corner and safety. And I'm excited for it. Like, I think he's just one of those guys where you plug him in and he kicks ass. Like, I think he can absolutely hold his own beautifully on the outside playing corner. I think he can obviously do a wonderful job playing safety. I think he can do anything. Wherever you put him, he's going to lock in and kill you. I mean, he was the only man to pick up Derrick Henry like that. We cannot forget everything that happened this season. And you talk about Saquon jumping backwards, and now he's the Madden cover, and I don't care at all about him being the Madden cover in regards to the curse. Like, no. I look at it like this. A lot of these players, and we can open up this discussion a little later for the future of what this season holds for us, but normally these guys come off of great years. Well, when you win how hard is it to win another Super Bowl and have another dominant elite year following a dominant elite year? It's very hard to do. Not impossible to do. The expectation is to do it again. But the Madden curse, how much of it is, yeah, you're coming off of a phenomenal season where you're a top dog, and it's hard to keep consistency in this league. Things change rather quickly. Teams go from fourth in their division to first. They do this, they do that. There's teams jumping around all the time. I think it's probably because the team's coming off of a great year, and it's hard to keep consistency in this league. But I do trust the Eagles that they can. Nothing that happens this upcoming year has anything to do with if you're on a cover of a game or not. Anyway, the backwards jump, the snow game, there's so many moments and key moments. But my man Cooper DeJean literally picked up a 700-pound running back that everybody says is a force that can't be stopped and threw him back 10 yards. He could play anywhere. You could put him anywhere. And I'm excited to see it. He said the CJGJ trade, fine with it. Salary cap move, fine with it. Fine with it. I'm sure he was fine with it. I don't want to bash CJGJ because the two stints here, Super Bowl 2022 appearance, Super Bowl win 2024, he's a part of that. But something tells me it wasn't his favorite to deal with tape study maybe at times. Some of the tape studiers say he would freelance and whatnot. And then you also have just the personality side of things. He's fine with it. I'm sure he was. And last year he talked about Bryce Huff because Bryce Huff, it's official with the physical going to San Francisco, getting that mid-round pick 2026. I think Howie Roseman does a phenomenal job of getting out of issues early instead of double downing and saying, well, I made this commitment to this player, so I'm just going to absolutely run it back and see if we can get anything out of him. Although I will admit that there were times when I was discussing how you could maybe fill some of the sacks that you lost from Josh Sweat and Milton Williams from the interior and Brandon Graham retiring. How can you do it? And I said, well, if you're going to be here with Bryce Huff, is it possible he can get you 5 sacks? I almost talked out loud on if that was something I could even think about. Not that 5 sacks is worth the money. You paid him to be a a double-digit sack guy, but 5 sacks is better than 0, especially when you're losing a lot of bodies that you are on the defensive front. But to Howie's credit, when he sees something isn't worth it, like we saw with Carson Wentz, hey, it's not going to pan out. All right, we'll move on to the next idea. He's able to do that. But he says he expects him to have some success with San Francisco, and really it was that hand injury that costed him what maybe would have been a nice season here. I think it was a lot more than the hand injury. But what it opened up was, and for the third time, it falls right in line with giving credit to the staff and how they're able to develop, is it gave guys like Jalen Hunt an opportunity. It gave guys like Nolan Smith an opportunity, and they flourished. And now we're talking about entering this season with Jalen Hunt being one of the guys because of what he was capable of doing last year. That's important. But it defines, again, what this franchise is doing. More than just Howie, more than just Nick. I mean, this thing really does have a lot of layers to it. And that's why when you have a Kevin Patullo slide in when someone leaves, all right, well, there was success with this team in a lot of different ways with coaches underneath of Kellen Moore. Although, interesting, I bring that up. The passing game was the one area we needed to see more from throughout the regular season game, and that was the staple of Kevin Patullo. So maybe that was BS, what I just gave you. But in theory, it makes sense. But the one thing I was going to say on Saquon, and we can kind of move forward with this another day, is just talking about that type of year. This is a conversation for another day for sure, but just the workload. Thinking about the workload he put on his body and what's the best way to attack moving forward as a team. But there's plenty of time to get more into that for sure. I'm just kind of sprinkling that in, and you can let it marinate in your head. All right, with that, thank you guys all so much for kicking that. Greatly appreciate it. I will talk to you all soon. Go Birds! Have a great rest of your day.